Can I tell you something completely random that we don't really need to talk about?
Okay.
Just while you're doing this,
Uh-huh.
we watched a true crime documentary called Sasquatch, and
Yeah.
here's the premise. The and this is like how it starts. So the premise is this journalist, investigative journalist, who like he goes undercover with like criminal organizations and stuff. Really interesting, weird guy. Very strange background, it seems.
Okay.
He recalls that in his early 20s, maybe he was working in Humboldt County, I think, growing weed, like helping some of the weed growers up there. And he said one night these two guys come in. It's like a cold, rainy night or whatever. And they come into this cabin. He's hanging out with a couple of other guys, and they come in totally freaked out. And they say, Bigfoot murdered 3 guys on a weed farm that we were just at. And they're like torn to pieces. There's 3 bodies over there.
Oh my God.
And nobody took any weed. It wasn't a hit. Nobody stole anything. It was Bigfoot. And this guy remembers this story because somebody was saying like, it would be great if there was a way to do like a true crime thing related to like Bigfoot. Wouldn't that be amazing? And he's like, I remember this story. So the whole documentary is him setting off on a quest to figure out what the hell was that? Did that even happen? Am I crazy? If it did happen, was it Bigfoot? Probably not. So what really did happen? And then the journey that it takes you on, it's a really well made little docuseries, like 3 episodes. I'm really into this true crime stuff lately. So
I should tell my dad about that show. My dad really loves Bigfoot stories. He loves to retell me about like the plots to all sorts of TV shows. And I recall when we were in Yosemite climbing up to see the redwoods, he was telling me a Bigfoot story. And I guess that story lasted half the hike up while we were wandering around in circles and then all the way back down. And at some point, he decides he needs to demonstrate for me the Bigfoot call, because apparently some of these people know what it sounds like. So he starts doing this Bigfoot call, making these monstrous sounds. And as we turn the corner, there is this terrified little kid hanging onto his father's leg. And they were like, no, it's that guy. See, it's not real. It's just that guy. It's okay. And so my dad makes the noise again, and the kid's like, ah.
Oh my God.
Like, it didn't make it better. There's like a whole family. It's like 4 kids. This just shaking kid.
Oh my God.
His dad's leg.
Well, he must have been good at the call then, I guess.
Well, it was certainly loud.
Yeah, and scary.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. I mean, I knew it was coming, so I was a bit prepared for any startling noise.
Yeah.
I'm certain he's proud of it.
You one of our childhood movies is shared, I believe, is Harry and the Hendersons, right? You've seen that one?
Oh
right?
my God, yes.
I think we've talked about this like back at the beginning of our show. But yeah, that movie definitely made an impact on me as a kid. I was like, and it was very emotional for me. I loved that character.
It's kind of weird that hasn't come back.
What, like a reboot or sequel or something?
Of all the ones they make.
I wonder if there are like a bunch of crappy knockoff versions of it that probably do exist, but those are like bargain bin kind of movies. Yeah. Because I have to imagine there's got to be like a super low budget Sasquatch nanny movie.
Well, so I just remembered, and now so when Bigfoot is in the snow, is it abominable? What is the name of the snowman?
Abominable snowman. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think Leica actually did that movie, Abominable or whatever.
Leica? What's Leica?
Leica is that puppet. They did Coraline, which I also haven't seen.
Oh, you mean the claymation stuff?
Yeah, claymation puppety thing.
Are you talking about the missing link?
Oh, was it Link instead?
There's two. There was one, Abominable, which had Channing Tatum in it, and it was like I think that was what it was called. And it was about.
I might be talking about Link that Leica did, and then the other one. So
the claymation one is the Link.
Okay.
I think
you're right.
Or sorry, Missing Link. And that one had Zach Galifianakis as the Sasquatch. Did you see it?
No, I'm just writing it down. Maybe that's homework.
It's adorable.
Okay.
Yeah, it was quite endearing and very good. Yeah,
I mean,
it didn't blow me away as much as some of their other movies, because I think they did like Kubo and the Two Strings too, and that movie is a masterpiece. Missing Link was fun and it was good. I mean, yeah, it's better than fucking Minions or something.
She was like a production manager for all the different teams and keeping all of that. No. Like she was wrangling all of the puppetry cats and things for all the stop motion. She'd gone from. Oh
my God, that's an amazing job.
Yeah, is that stressful too? Turns out.
I am somewhat familiar with the behind the scenes process because I follow a lot of special effects type people and learn about that kind of stuff. It is mind boggling the amount of work that they'll have like 50 different mouths for the character that they'll be like, okay, and for this split second, we're going to take this mouth and put it back on. And okay, one picture. Good. Now take that one off and and it's, and every second of a 90-minute movie has to be done like that.
Helping keep track of that. Where these different puppets are during any of the like scenes, and if anybody's backlogged or behind schedule, it throws everybody else off.
There is something magical about it, though. There's something tangible about, I think, the conscious decision around everything that gives it arguably more life than some of the CG type stuff where it feels more like a computer algorithm made the movement of this character. Whereas with like Nightmare Before Christmas, is that right? Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nightmare Before Christmas. That one, I mean, you can see fingerprints. On the Blu-ray version, you can see fingerprints in the clay of the characters. Yeah. There's something beautiful about that to me. You know? I don't know. Yeah.
That's kind of rad. Hey, I was joking. So, hey, welcome to the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. Here we are. We've been doing it. I'm Adrianne Gunn here with
Nicholas Rave.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I should have said something funny. I got to work on my spit take timing.
You were close. Your timing was good. Your spit take was missing. Like the joke was missing.
I think it's kind of funny. So last week we started the show like, hey, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just having like birthday existential crisis. How you doing? And like, I saw some shows, whatever. And then as we're leaving, you're like, I might not make it next time my wife's going to have a baby. I was like, wait, that's kind of a big like life going on check-in that we didn't get.
So you didn't know beforehand?
Well, I sort of did, pregnant? But you weren't like, I mean, there's an audience. How's your life, Nicholas? I watch some shows.
Oh, by the way, know. People who know me know.
Is it possible that it could be eventful to be in a life preparing for another child?
I do think that at least one person in the last week has been like, what? You're having a baby? And I'm like, this subject hasn't come up in the last 9 months? Huh.
Well, I don't think it's come up on our show.
No, that's probably true. But yeah, it seems as if she's going to make it all the way to the scheduled time, which is Friday morning. So,
wow, that's so very soon.
I know.
I've been thinking quite a lot about my birth, like birth and that process in general. And you have taught, I mean, I learned this from you first. The way that birth happens can... that imprint of how your birth goes can affect a lot of the patterns that show up in the rest of your life. So fascinating. Does that cover C-sections?
Yes, for sure. And it's definitely been on my mind. This is making the best of a difficult situation. The C-section thing is not by choice. Like,
sure.
Do you know what the term VBAC means?
No.
It means vaginal birth after cesarean.
Okay.
And it's a big deal to have a C-section and then come back after that. For a long time, some people thought it couldn't be done, like it wasn't safe to try to do that. And then there were lots of other women and medical professionals saying, no, absolutely, there are ways that you can do it, it can be safe. And so we worked really hard to try to make that happen.
Yeah.
The baby is breech, so she's upside down, and there's no really reliable ways to turn her due to some extenuating circumstances. So it's kind of like, well, okay. And it's rough. Like, I wish that it was going to be the other way, and that I could catch her and do it and immediately put the baby on her chest. And none of that happened with Will.
Yeah.
And it was sad. I still have a kind of sadness in my heart when I think about not getting to touch him for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And that was, it makes me uncomfortable. But, and I use that word intentionally, Will is a goddamn dynamo. He is some kind of freak of nature, of just cute, smart, happy, loving, amazing kid. So I think the rest of your life, the rest of your childhood maybe matters a lot more than just the imprint of your birth. Not that it doesn't matter at all, obviously. That's the whole point. And I think the rest of your upbringing and everything that goes along with it is more important than getting that perfect.
Well, and essentially you have the opportunity to prove or disprove whatever that initial guess about the universe is that a kid makes.
Yeah, I like that perspective. I've had that thought before, that it's like, okay, you might get a bad impression, but it's okay, it gets better.
Yeah. I don't know. I its birthday's coming up. So, and also I regularly now work on my shoulder injury, and only recently, like last year, heard more of my birth story. And so, 100, I think it was like 100 in a row protests that were like tear gassed and such. All of that's happening downtown. You can kind of hear it up the river. And so then I hear the story.
While you're being born?
No, it's just like, it's around my birthday. I can hear those things happening. I finally talked to my parents about my birth story, because they're not really kid people, my parents. There's just a tiny handful of stories. None of the epic details that I hear yearly from other friends, family members, and people with kids. I hear their story, like, got all these details. My parents don't have that. Like, oh yeah, you were stuck. They thought you were going to die, or your mom was going to die. Pulled you out with forceps. You didn't use your arm for like 3 years. Like, that's the whole story. Except I asked them more details, and it turns out that they actually knew about forceps being potentially problematic, and were kept asking them not to use them, and they didn't listen and did it anyway. And it's a lifelong injury for me, which is challenging. But the last year I was like, oh, because probably racism is how that happened, because the rest of my mom's stories were about how the black nurses treated her like crap because she was with a white man, and the white nurses treated her like crap because she's a black woman. And they kept coming in and wondering when my tan was going to wash off, because I was dirty. I just came out dirty, apparently. And I was just like, it's possible no one's dying, and that this didn't need to happen. And if they just listened, or I don't know, who knows? But but then I've just been thinking about this idea of like how you come into the world. And I was like, okay, is the universe safe? And I'm like, well, so I enter a little broken. My parents are probably terrified because that's the first time they meet me. That can't be the easiest introduction to this fragile thing that they can't protect. Yeah. Right. And then there are all sorts of other people who are like, hey, what you're trying to do, don't do it, because you're supposed to be a girl and you're supposed to do it. Like, just like the environment kept sort of supporting that people were more dangerous. The world was dangerous. It's a very interesting thing to see how I sort of I show up ready to fight things. ready to like burst my way through the world. And
I'm trying to remember the name of the book that if somebody wants to read more about this, it's on my shelf and I'm trying to cycle through, but they're a long ways away. It's Stanislav Grof, and I want to say it's called Healing Our Deepest Wounds. I think that's one of the books where he talks about the 4 stages of birth trauma imprinting. Yes. Healing Our Deepest Wounds. I found it. It's right between the green one and the orange one. There's a blue one and it says Groff. There's a lot of insight to be gained from thinking about and learning about your birth experience as an archetypal imprint for your life in the universe. My wife suspects, we suspect after consulting with some really skilled osteopaths and different body workers that it was quite likely that her, what's this bone? Clavicle?
Clavicle,
right? Collarbone was broken when she was born. And they don't know why, but they think that nobody noticed it. And we've thought a lot about what would that be like? Like if you're a mom and you have a baby who has a broken collarbone and you don't know it, and that baby will not stop crying for anything.
Yeah.
And let's say your mom, as a mom, this particular mom maybe has some more narcissistic tendencies anyway. And so their reaction to, I can't get my baby to love me back, when in fact they're just in a great deal of pain, is they start shutting down and immediate distance starts growing between the mother and the child. And I'm not even saying that's an example of something that's happened to lots of people. That's a very specific story. But when you look into how you were born and subtle things about it, if you can get some detail, which you can do by talking to people who were there, they're still around, but you can also do this through deep meditation or hypnosis. There are regressive techniques. Also, Stanislav Grof's a big fan of the use of psychedelics for that purpose of going back to these imprinted moments. And a lot of movies and things, segue, play into these archetypes. So if you learn about these 4 stages, you can actually see them in a lot of characters and movies as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get there. Probably. Oh my gosh. So I watched we were talking about young adult when we were talking about how Charlize Theron's funny, and you're like, here's this movie.
Had you seen it before? Was this a rewatch?
And I was rewatching it, and I remember having the very quintessential experience of just finding her character so deeply unlikable.
Yeah.
And nothing being all that particularly redeeming. It's a very fascinating movie to write.
Yeah.
Because it makes people either just get it and they're like, oh my God, they made this happen. Or they're just like, that was the most uncomfortable thing. And I want to stab my eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading, I think Diablo Cody wrote it or something like that. And so I was reading an article about it. And she referenced the director and that he had written the screenplay Labor Day, written and directed Labor Day. And I'm not remembering his name. Why is money? Why is money?
Hi, what's your money?
Brain. God damn. What was I thinking I was about to say? So weird. So I watched Labor Day.
The director.
From the same director.
Okay. So you also whoa, wow, it's going off the rails. Take a deep breath.
Everybody's
Let's
in
try again. You watched, let me see if I can do this. So you watched Young Adult.
Yeah.
It was written by Diablo Cody. The director of Young Adult also wrote this movie called Labor Day, and then you went and watched that.
I did.
like
I
a
did.
like a IMDb spelunker.
Yep.
Just going from one cave to another.
Yeah. Well, I did that for a couple things, and I abandoned a few movies because I'm like, oh, I don't enjoy this one. Yeah, Labor Day, Kate Winslet, Josh Brolin, and
I don't think
I really enjoyed it because it's a little on the depressing side. It's like depressing and somewhat romantic, but probably some people won't think so. So the idea is a convict escapes from a hospital and asks to hide in the house of Winslet and her son. And so they have this 5-day like Labor Day weekend experience where the two fall in love. And it's a fascinating slow, like Kate Winslet is kind of agoraphobic for reasons. And it's actually based on a book. And he did not do what they arrested him for. So it's a fascinating thing of like two sad souls connecting.
Yeah. I feel like I want to ask, how did she convince him to let her stay in his house? But then I think like that's the movie. So you probably shouldn't tell me that. I need to watch the movie to see.
He convinced them to let him stay in their house.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I meant is how does he convince? Wait.
She and her son.
Yeah.
Are in the house. He finds them at a grocery store or something.
Yeah, and he convinces to let him stay. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, initially he was just going to stay a night, and also he's a large. No.
This sounds interesting. I might watch it. Don't spoil.
Okay.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to know. I want to watch it.
I really enjoyed it. I think I kind of like it when sad people find each other at a time when no one's expecting such a thing to happen, and then growth somehow.
Is there another example of hope. This?
Probably. I want to say The Myth of Fingerprints. There's probably a lot of other examples that I don't remember the name of because I wasn't thinking of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious. Because I do think of that as a genre, a subgenre of like romantic.
Yeah. Playing by Heart. Angelina Jolie is in that, I think. It's an ensemble thing. Oh, fucking the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is an ensemble of like many sad souls meeting people. The Five Senses is also a really good one. It's super a genre, and I have watched a lot of these.
This is what I wanted. I was hoping you were going to drop a bunch. Good. So anybody watching that's interested, now you have a list. Moving on.
What were you watching this week?
Let's see. I mean, I feel like we talked recently.
We did, because it was just Sunday.
Right. Okay. That explains it. So I watched the Evil Dead movies. We talked about that. We watched Serenity, the movie finishing of the Firefly TV series.
Yeah.
Still holds up. Pretty good. Pretty great. Really creative and fun, and a lot happens. I'm
pretty thrilled how much those people have been hired in all sorts of other really great shows and movies and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a few sci-fi refugees from different shows that got canceled that would get picked up by other series. Like I remember there were characters that got shifted over from one show that I watched called Farscape over to another show that I was watching, Stargate, and it was one of them was canceled or finished, I think, and then these people came over here, and all the fans were kind of fans of both, so it was like, my favorite actor from that show is coming over to this other show that I love, and they're like, yes, wonderful, and it was they didn't miss a day of work, and I've seen that happen before. What else have I watched? I don't think I've watched anything else since we talked.
Well, I have these things written down.
Yeah, I finished Loki. We haven't really talked about that, so we watched that. We talked about Attack the Block. I've seen District 9, which we were thinking about talking about.
Yeah.
And I've seen that a few times. So, but
Yeah.
you've never seen it before, right?
No.
Okay, we'll save that one. Did you want to talk about Loki?
Sure. I just I just got to remember when we talk about District 9 that we may need to install an Adrianne sort of heads up, like a little bit of like, maybe not watch this before bed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to need to like up my sensitivity meter for that, because for me, that movie was like fun and moving, but not challenging. So
sure.
there are some movies like I would be like, oh no, I will definitely let you know about this one. But that one wouldn't have crossed that filter line, so I'll have to adjust it. I
don't think you need a new filter. I think you just need to ask yourself, would Liz watch this with me before bed?
I think she would probably watch that one.
That one? Okay, cool. No worries.
Yeah. I mean, she watched Serenity, and it has those like Reaver characters, and but it just doesn't show a ton.
That's very different. It's very different.
You think so?
Yeah. Maybe when we talk about it, and apparently we're talking about
Let's get into the details of it. Would you want to do that one first then?
Yeah, let's do it. We're here. Okay, so District 9. When we were talking about this Sunday, we were talking about sort of low budget, creative, new kinds of movies.
Yeah. Neil Blomkamp was hired to make a big budget. This is the story that I heard anyway, a big budget adaptation of a video game called Halo. And it fell through, and he had done a bunch of pre-production work and had this idea for this script, and they did this relatively low budget, but from my perspective, it has some of the best special effects I've ever seen in any movie still.
Yeah.
Like I will put that movie up there with Avatar as far as believable visuals and creative visuals, the creative creatures and the weapons and the way the weapons work and the sound design. Just a stellar crafted movie, and really gritty.
Yes.
Really gritty and real, and like feels almost like a documentary feel. And I know they do that on purpose, but to me, it makes it so much more visceral and emotional. Oh man, I loved that movie when I saw it, and it came out of nowhere.
So it starts, it's sort of filmed in documentary style, where there are, in some moments, where there are interviews that sort of starts the movie, and there's this giant spaceship floating over Johannesburg. And the first thing that I thought was like, see Independence Day?
Yes.
There's a fucking city in Africa.
100% they did that on purpose. 100%. I mean, obviously it helps with the racial allegory that we have going on here, and the class allegories as well, to put it there. But I know that somebody was like, that's such a good idea of like, why would it show up over New York? And only these, big recognizable monuments. Let's have it show up right here. And it's so great.
And so I guess they described that the aliens were they set up a slum. They were refugees, and then they set up a slum, and they had all these new rules, and they fenced it. So it's like they take in the first chunk of the movie, they take and describe what's happened over the course of 20 years. And then the initial plot point is that they are trying to relocate them further outside of Johannesburg. And that is the initial thrust of this movie.
Again, the believability factor here is one of the things that makes this movie so good, is that they really present you with this question that, sci-fi does so well. What if this happened? And then you just play it out, and it reveals things about the world and about people, and I mean, there's lore, there's very subtle like background lore of like, I find it really interesting, the idea that the ship showed up and then just sat there and it didn't do anything, and everybody's just like, and then they, I think helicopter up there and cut a hole in the thing, and then they find all these creatures that, because I mean, totally alien. The ones that are alive aren't smart enough to run the ship, but there's thousands of them. And so then and then people are like, okay, well, let's help them. And then 20 years go by, and 20 years of people helping these things, and the tension between them, and it starts to build, and then and that's the setup. And it's just, again, the setup and the premise is so honest and believable. It makes the rest of the movie work really well.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I think is interesting about it being in South Africa, and that the aliens' language is a clicking language, is that there's the Kosa, but it's the Osa, which I probably did wrong there, which is a fascinating choice to have the aliens speak in that. I don't imagine that it's accidental.
No, I'm sure not. Neil Blomkamp is South African.
Right. Yeah. So I just thought it was kind of pretty fascinating that they made that choice. Mm-hmm. And I don't think any of the other humans that were around there had clicking in their language, which is common for that particular nation, tribe, humans, people, that language. Mm-hmm. And I know they're prevalent in South Africa because I studied that forever ago, but I've forgotten most of it. Wow, this movie, though, really intense and gritty. Similar amount of intense. So Mad Max Thunder Road was just like grip all of your internal organs and then just squeeze and then not leave you alone, in of like the daring, like unending chase thing. Yeah. The pace of this was that intense with how horrifyingly grotesque this lead character is. And it almost, I could be wrong, but the personality of the lead character, it's as if we had a sadistic Midwesterner, like a incredibly racist and sadistic Midwesterner. So you've got this like polite voice and manners, but just horrifying things coming out of this person's, like the tonality seems like it's pleasant because that's the Midwest thing, and then oh my god, I just I can't words. I couldn't earlier anyway, but like just
there's something about making characters that are hateable enough that we feel vindicated when they suffer in a story. Yeah. And this character he's got what I consider to be a very interesting character journey. Yeah. Because he does grow and change, but he fucks up continually. Yes. Again and again, infuriatingly. Like he makes you angry with him as you watch, and you're like, why are we following this character who continually proves that he's an asshole? And then it does actually, he does actually have a journey. Yeah. I don't know if we've gotten into spoilers yet. I don't think we have. But that journey is like, you have to see him sink really low into the depths of hell, his own hell, before he wakes up to it. And I do think that's kind of the point of the story, is that this is what it took for him to actually see these creatures as I don't know.
Unfortunately,
I don't want to say human, but worth worthy of respect.
Yeah, or even sympathy. Like, I think I'm just so used to the arc being someone like that gets redeemed a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so used to that Hollywood story arc. And I think what makes this movie so uncomfortable to watch is that I am certain that this is more realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, and from what we know about unconscious minds and behaviors and how humans are, you watch a movie like that and think, oh my God, who hurt you? In a funny way. But the thing is, like, people change and they can change quickly. And wow, it really takes, I mean, this over the course, like the story takes over the course of like 5-ish days or something like that.
Yeah, I think so, if that.
In other story, people evolve a lot faster, and that's not as realistic as this particular instance, that somebody is going to continue to make self-involved decisions from their own ideas about how the world works and what's going on. And I think that did not help my current wondering about change and possibility and what it takes on a grander scale of some of the dark ugliness of our culture and society and things going on. I was just like, oh, this hit so hard.
I suppose one possible reframe on that perspective is if you approach any random person and try to get them to change that massively over the course of 5 days or take your pick, that might be very difficult, but maybe it's a matter of catching people at the right moment.
Right.
And then it's a matter of, well, how many people are there? So out of all those people, how many people are ready right now to have that transformation?
Yes.
How do you find those people? Maybe it's not, how can I take anybody at any point in their life and help them to shift and change? But there's a lot of people who are ready for it. And maybe the job is to serve those people.
Totally. Oh, and that makes a lot of sense. It's also that this happened to be a person who was had a lot of power and control in this movie. And my philosophy is that change happens when it becomes personal to someone. And it became
this one
personal.
Makes it very personal.
It was very personal, and it got very personal 5 to 12,000 different times.
Yeah.
Can actually shift it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Good to know.
I mean, that is what is so, I don't know, satisfying about the movie is they set that character up to be hateable. And then one by one, he goes through every single thing and more that he put others through. And that's what his punishment, quote unquote, is. You know, there's a lot of writing on the idea that there's, we like stories to contain some degree of justice. Yeah. And that especially justice that doesn't actually exist in the real world. Yes. We need it to be in our stories because it makes the story feel right, because we have this inner sense of justice, and that inner sense of justice can be wrong. Like some cultures, including ours, have a sense of justice that's off. And so when a movie has a different sense of justice, people won't like it. They'll react negatively to it. Totally. But this movie, I don't know, maybe it can be encouraging that this movie was as popular as it was. Yeah. But a lot of people were like, oh, I get it. I get what this is about. And this movie's amazing. I mean, it was, a hit.
Very surprising. I'm thinking about this redeemable, irredeemable. We could transition to Loki from there.
Yeah. Wonderful. Smooth.
Right? Villain. So, I don't think I watched. Did you watch any of the stuff ahead of time for the show?
I intentionally avoided everything. I didn't even see a trailer.
I mean, the closest I got was that in January, I rewatched all of the things. So I got to see all the different moments of Loki. And there's like, 4 Avengers. He's in he's in all 3 Thors, right? And then he's in Infinity War for a split second.
He's in Infinity War. Oh yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah,
because he doesn't make it to Endgame. Or no, actually, he's in Endgame for a split second too. In Infinity War, that's where he dies at the end. Spoilers, or at the very beginning. But then in Endgame, that's where the Loki that picks up in the TV show Loki has his origin.
Yeah.
During that.
So the Avengers go back to try to get the Tesseract during that attack on the
Battle of New York. Yeah.
And then Loki notices, what? Is there a door that opens? Is there a...
The Tesseract falls out of a suitcase and like slides right to his feet. And he's like, okay. And he picks it up and disappears into a portal. And then we never see that Loki again in that movie.
Yeah.
And or in any of the other movies since. And this is what happened to that Loki. He escaped out of that timeline. And totally. Then this whole series is based off of that. And this whole series ends up setting up the next phase. More than any of the other things that have come so far, this one is the one that is like, all right, here's what we're doing. Like, we set up Thanos 25 movies ago or whatever.
Right.
And now we're setting up this. And yeah, I mean, what were your overall impressions and thoughts?
So I'm going to watch it again. I did not know it was only going to be 6 episodes. There's an interesting pacing in this show that I don't think makes sense to make people wait a week or so in between. There's something about it that I think probably feels better to binge it the whole time, because
I felt exactly the same.
Just way. Like, this doesn't work as a serial in this way. It works as like, throw them all out, let us like drop in completely for a day. And you know that I have an exposition trigger. And so I know that Loki is a bit long-winded and entertaining. He's one with the monologues and such, but I also, Owen Wilson, I'm not a big fan of Owen Wilson. And he's one with every movie he's in, he has these monstrous long monologues. So this ended up being we may as well have been at a campfire. Everybody's like talking slowly and endlessly about a world and things going on. Because there was something really, there's a lot of fun and quirky and hilarious things that happen. And there's just this weird, eerie, slow as hell pacing and all these gosh darn monologues and all of this talking. And I couldn't place it because it's not like anything genre wise that makes sense to me. So that there was just this eerie weirdness. And I know that a lot of it's happening like outside of time. So maybe that's what was going on, is that they're trying to create this outside of time. It's like WandaVision has things that we know. Oh, TV shows, they're doing this for a while. And then it jumps into, and Falcon and Winter Soldier is like, hey, we're doing the action thing. And I'm like, okay, I can settle into that. And I just kept wondering, what is this thing while I was watching it? And having a lot of people who read all the comic books and they know the canon of things, they were very excited about a bunch of things that were happening. And I was attempting to decide whether I believed that Loki had changed or learned anything. And what was also interesting is how much or how little I had decided Loki, like who the heck he was in the first place.
Well, that's kind of hard to do with a character that is as duplicitous as he has been. Plus, we saw a version of Loki go on a journey, and then that Loki doesn't exist anymore. And this one is actually one that didn't go on a lot of the journeys we spent with him. So we don't know who this character is as much.
Well, and it's fascinating because I've heard the argument that the MCU's been really bad at villains. They don't they don't have three-dimensionality in their villains. And Loki has slightly, like, he's adopted and like mad about it, and there's like a sibling rivalry that's a thing. And I don't really know why he decides to bring, is it the Chitori or whatever, to New York. He just wants to run stuff. There's like, and instead of motivating it from something that you see or I can actually feel, it's like, oh, I want to run stuff. I made this agreement. It's just, there's something not so tangible to me about his motivation for who he's being, other than like, oh, I'm a trickster.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be power hungry.
Yeah.
But I agree. They don't. I mean, in the first Thor movie, they kind of set up that he was in the shadow of Thor and he felt resentment. And then the second one, he fakes his own death. But there was a little bit more character journey in that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the second one is after Avengers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's in jail.
So in Avengers,
yeah, that's all we know about him. Is Thor 1, Thor 1, and that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing, which lends to like who is this? Who, like, the expectations for me of who he was going to be in the show? I just was like, it was a little off. And so maybe when I watch it again, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm in this. I get it. Get what's happening. It was just a weird experience to me. I don't know what you felt about it. I've heard a lot of people really, 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 really loved it. And it really hit home. And I've seen really good reviews about it in the way of like, they're contrasting it to what WandaVision should have done. They should have done the ending like Loki. And there's like holding it up as this beacon. And I'm a little confused. And I want to feel that way about it, actually, because it was interesting.
Well, I agree with you about the binge watching versus the serialized one at a week. I think that it's got a very hypnotic quality to it in a good way that I actually really liked, that it takes its time with stuff, and that's kind of fun. There is a bit of a pacing issue, but I mean, go back and watch movies from the 70s. They take their time before you get to dialogue scenes, and there's a lot of classic movies where the pacing is not like this all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. I like hanging out with characters. I like the dialogue stuff. I don't have an issue with exposition the way that you do. I think if the lines are cleverly written, it's fine. And I felt like this may be my favorite Owen Wilson performance ever.
Wow.
I think he was perfect in this role. I agree with you that it was definitely weird. I liked it for the most part. And I liked a lot of what they were playing with in this. We gotta wake up, like you have to like break free from destiny. And I love the Wizard of Oz homage that the whole series is, and this gateway veil at the end to find the man behind it all is a wonderful quest and journey story. I'll also say, as far as like specific moments, probably one of my favorite moments maybe in all of Marvel is the moment in the first episode when he opens the drawer and
oh my god, yes,
the Infinity Stones and a bunch of other crazy shit is in this drawer. And the way that the writers of this figured out a way to say, hey, you know, all that stuff that came before, remember how big and amazing and epic that it was? paperweights. and then we get to experience the same. What? There's more than one of them. They don't work. And what the hell? And like Loki's, and then him going, is this the greatest power in the universe? And then now he's going, okay, so that is the setup to me of this series. Is he just discovered something that makes all of the Infinity Gauntlet look like child's play,
right?
And now he's like, what the fuck is this? Who is behind this? And the rest of it is the quest to figure that out. And that answer to that question sets up the rest of the phase 4 or maybe more.
I get the feeling that and we're not the only people who've said this, that having to wait a week or several weeks between, I get the feeling that this show is so loaded with setup and philosophy and tying up things for what they're about to do and what's come before.
That's
it's
exactly
so loaded
that
it doesn't make any sense to not build an intensity one after another, to give us a whole week of experience in life and forgetting what the heck just happened. And like, because it doesn't, I think the responsibility of a television show is to bring you back at the top of the next episode to whatever is the most appropriate feelings to be experiencing.
And this just feels like a 5-hour long movie.
Yeah.
Where it really feels like it should be watched back to back to back. I mean, maybe not all at once, but the like taking a break in the middle or something. And I think that wasn't true for me with WandaVision. I liked the mystery with WandaVision, and I didn't really care with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This one, I agree. It definitely, and it's because of the pacing most of all. The pacing just feels like it would be so much better. Like Blade Runner 2049, that movie is so deliberately paced, and it's so hypnotic, and I love it. Yeah. I think so. The ending, I think the point people are making about the end is it didn't have a goddamn sky beam. And that is pretty much the complaint that people have about every Hollywood movie in general, but most of the climaxes of Marvel movies have a sky beam of some sort, usually blue, but sometimes they're different colors. Like, ooh, it's a sky beam that's red this time, like in WandaVision. And I think that people were saying that story felt more like the ending of this, the climax of this should be less action oriented and more emotional character experiences. And this one felt a lot more conversational. It ended with an episode of conversation, practically no action at all. Now,
fascinating.
Oh, son of a bitch. Majors. What's his name? What's the actor's name who plays he who remains? Jonathan Majors, I believe, is his name. He's from Lovecraft Country. And oh my lord, what an actor. Did you know he's a professionally trained clown? Like a classically trained clown.
That makes some sense.
That's why he moves so consciously and so deliberately. So this is the deal. What I will say that I felt like we got to the end of it and we're like, really, this entire series is just a setup. Like there's not a lot of payoff in this 5 hours. It's more questions that are answered. It did help me feel better when I found out that this story, it is going to continue. It's going to pick up from where it left off in season 2 of Loki. And that does make me feel a little better. Like we're not just setting it up and then we're going to go bye Loki. And then it's that entire story wasn't about him. It was about everything else that's happening. So that made me feel a little better. But the interesting thing about Jonathan Majors as this new, basically Thanos level threat is he gets to play possibly, well, maybe not an infinite number of him, but he gets to play a lot of different versions of him. And you got to hire an actor who's going to go, all right, watch me.
Yes.
Me. Like,
Yeah.
just he's gonna have so much fucking fun getting to play different versions of this, and I'm sure they're gonna mess with it. And so it's basically like Rick from Rick and Morty just entered the which is interesting because one of the writers from Rick and Morty is is writing the new Ant-Man movie, the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I think is what it's called. And one of the writers from Rick and Morty is writing that one. So
yeah, what I do like is that okay, so these are spoiler sentences. I was going to attempt to make them vague. What I do like about, so at the top here, I'm saying I'm confused because I'm not sure I understand Loki and his motivations through the movies that he'd appeared in. And here's the show, and I'm not sure who this character is. But what's fascinating about this show is that when we're saying Loki, we mean Loki as an archetype. And essentially all of the Lokis were destined somehow to be a part of this particular story, which is pretty interesting. If you think of like the role of that trickster god and what that means in the whole scope of the universe and the multiverse and that sort of thing.
Well, trickster god, which is also Lucifer, is an allegory for that as well, or analogous, I guess. The trickster god is the rebellious teenager. It's the boundary tester. It's the push against authority to make something new and something better and fight for more. Yeah. And there's a lot of there's chaos in it, and a little bit of that destructive nature that often gets looked down upon by I want structure and rigidity and finality, and the Loki energy comes in and goes mischievous. And I think it's fun to be playing with archetypes like that on a grand stage like Marvel, the way they are. I mean, we're playing with truly mythological characters. People say superhero characters are the modern version of Greek myths, but literally these are mythological characters that have come to life again. Loki is a god again, in the sense that a god is an entity that humans think about and give energy to. Well, Loki has never been more alive, maybe ever.
Yeah, I love the line in Black Widow where the sister says, the god guy doesn't need Advil. Something like that. Yeah. Your god friend doesn't need Advil and you do. I don't know. But how casually she's talking about a god. It's like, oh yeah, it's a guy I could write him a postcard, whatever. I know that guy. It's a very odd, wonderful thing. I'm very excited about where they take it. Blowing up no clue. And I kind of like that I have no idea from comics what to expect. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, this is the point at which they can do anything, because now you could say all the different Spider-Man things, everything that has ever come before is a thing, and they're all just different universes, and all the comic books is a thing, and even the X-Men movies, we can find a way to bring those in, which they're working on. So could they even just open up contests for student filmmakers to make some version of some sort of thing? These are multiverse canon. Yeah. So it's canon, but it's just indie. From a multiverse where they only have iPhones. So anyway, if you make a movie with an iPhone. So we talked about Loki. Yeah. Did we talk about District 9? Was there more? We did. I didn't have more. I mean, the only thing that would make sense is if we had time, and we might not, is to just bring up Primer, because I watched it and we were just talking about time travel and things. Son of a bitch. I love that movie. It has been a little while
since I've seen it. I didn't know you were going to get to that one.
It did.
I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, again, we were talking about budget conscious, like guerrilla movie making.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, the 3 actors in the movie, they made it. Like, it was pretty much them. Almost everything, sets,
and the music,
costumes. Yes, exactly.
It's funny because I have a patience for lots of talking, and I'll watch a movie that seems like it should be a play. I'll do that.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like that. This is just a lot of talking and some action and a lot of conceptualizing. I don't know that I followed. There's a lot of it I didn't quite follow. I just I'm fine. I'm just gonna believe what they think is exciting and dangerous right now. I don't quite understand how it happened or when it happened or how this is working, So primer setup, 4 engineer friends begin building something together. They're trying to build
4? I thought it was 3.
It starts with 4.
Oh, okay.
It starts with 4 friends building something in a garage together, trying to make new technology for the sake of inventing something that hasn't been before and patents and things. And then 2 remain because the other guys are like, oh, we've been working on this for a while. We have to go back to work and actually do our jobs. And then they discover, oops, we made a time machine, which I think is fascinating. Do you suppose that people would actually not entirely know what they had on their hands? I'm not sure what they thought they were intending to make in the first place. Do you recall?
It's been a while since I watched it, so I should watch it again if we're going to discuss it in detail. But I don't remember what they were trying to make, or if it says or hints at what they were trying to make.
I think it just drops you in the middle, which I love. It's in medias res, which is just drop in the middle of a story, and we don't get any backstory about who these people are, how they got there. We're just sort of in the project with them, figuring out the problems and talking it over and finding the stuff. And it's fascinating because it really does feel like looking over the shoulders of a creative engineering genius-y discovery moment. And that's very, very exciting. And then it kind of goes off the rails in ways you may or may not expect.
Yeah.
Pretty satisfying for such an inexpensive. It doesn't look great. It sounds okay. I wasn't mad at it. The sound wasn't bad. It's a pretty grainy video.
But it's such a testament to what, creativity counts for so much. And performances were good too. They it was believable and it was written well, and the concept was interesting enough that you don't need a ton of money, you don't need a ton of sets. They spent a lot of time filming in a storage unit that they probably rented for $35 a month or something like that, and they did great. I love the way they design the actual, I guess, portal of sorts, and the idea that it doesn't look like anything. You just go through it and it looks just like the same location. It's just that on the other end of it is a while ago or whatever. And it's such an interesting idea. And then where they go with it, it gets really complicated. I love movies, especially science fiction movies, that don't hand it to you. They don't spoon feed you. You got to think about it and fill in some of the blanks. 2001 might be one of the best examples of this, but there's definitely movies that are you need to think to make this make sense. And Arrival, one of my favorite movies of all time, is definitely that, where you're this is not going to spoon feed it to you. You got to pay attention here and give some thought to this. Cloud Atlas, that's another one that doesn't even make sense if you don't warnings on that one. Maybe don't watch it before bed if you're writing that down.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, is that what we talk about next?
Oh my Lord. I've seen that one probably 5 or 6 times.
I think we should wait because you're having a baby.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know if I'll have a chance to watch it again. Well, I could probably talk about it more so than I could talk about Primer. Um, but I've seen, you made a really interesting time travel movie when you have when people make graphs, visual diagrams
Right.
to explain what happens in your movie. Like you
Yeah.
can Google Primer explanation, and in Google Images it'll have, okay, so here's what happened. He went back here, and then this came, and then this guy, and then over. And it's like, if you're not paying attention and really following it, it's confusing, and but it all actually works out. It makes sense.
It's so good. I'm trying to remember which movie I was attempting to do the math of. I think we may have talked about it. Oh, I think it was Tomorrow War. I left trying to do the time travel math of all the potentials and how this happened and who went where and that sort of thing and how they made it happen. I ended up bringing up Primer because it came up on a list of the 10 best time travel movies. And they're like, actually, the science may prove pretty okay in this, everything that they're talking about.
Have you ever heard the theory in Back to the Future that in order that somebody puts it together that in the first Back to the Future, in order for Marty to show up the way that he does at the end, that Doc may have actually sent him back like 10,000 times and all the other ones died? And that it's kind of an explanation for why is this super old Einstein character friends with a 17-year-old kid or whatever, and like, why are they best friends?
Oh my god!
And somebody puts together this theory that they're like, this doesn't really make sense unless he had multiple times to try it out, and it could be as many as it could be an infinite number that he sent back.
I have not. Oh my gosh.
I'll see if I can find it for you sometime. I think it was cracked.com that did that theory. Yeah. Time travel movies are always broken fundamentally. Time travel wrecks your story, and it's, if you think about it too much. Primer is often held up as the best story with time travel in it, that it doesn't break its own narrative. But most movies, including Back to the Future, like the tension at the end of the movie as Marty is trying to run to save Doc is only there because he set the clock to show up 10 minutes. He could have set it to show up 10 hours or 10 days before, and he also could have shown up 10 minutes early and then gone, oh, I don't have enough time. Or he could have waited for him to get shot and then gone back another 10 minutes. And it, like, again, it just completely breaks your movie.
Yeah.
If you think about it for any time.
Yeah. It makes me want to watch those, because those were very, very important to
the Back to the Future movies.
Oh yeah.
The first Back to the Future movie is a masterpiece. I watched it not that long ago. First of all, young kids of today, totally with it, 100%. Enjoyable, didn't lose them at all.
Yeah.
Even the 1980s stuff. But that movie is so well made and so well written. Every line, every little thing has a payoff. Like, watch that movie. It has little things that happen at the beginning that show up at the end, and it's just such a well crafted blockbuster movie, holds up immensely. Second, third one, probably not as great as the first one, but man, that first one.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do for my birthday. I'll watch that again. I really wanted to be Michael J. Fox.
It was originally supposed to be called one of the fucking movie producers originally wanted to call it like something like the Spaceman from Mars, or it was the name of the comic book that the kid is reading when he goes back and he crashes into the barn. The kid is reading this comic book about, and it's called like alien creature from Mars or something like this. And he was going to call it that.
That's
and
really
then somebody was like, no, it's about time travel, not space.
Yeah. Well, and also Eric Stoltz was supposed to be, he was the first one to cast
for like a week. There's footage of him in the role.
And he was just doing too much existential crisis guy, too much sad emo boy. And they found, I don't know, knowing that like Michael J. Fox was one of the earliest people I wanted to emulate. I know that I probably knew him from Family Ties first. I just was like, what would my life have been like had that been Eric Stoltz? I probably don't know that I would have felt like an Eric Stoltz at the time.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't have emulated the character if it wasn't Michael J. Fox. I mean, talk about an iconic performance. Like Michael J. Fox, that role is, I don't know, Indiana Jones. Trying to think of other iconic performances.
Okay, I just came up with a movie and something that I should Twitter, because now I want to figure out iconic movies that changed people's lives and directed them. Like what if Indiana Jones was a different actor?
What if Indiana Jones was damn it, Magnum PI.
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck auditioned for it. You know, the two leading runner-up candidates besides Harrison Ford, because George Lucas didn't want to work with Harrison Ford because he'd already worked with him on Star Wars, and he's like, I don't want to work with him. It was Tom Selleck and Christopher Walken.
That is epic. Oh my God.
Can you imagine Indiana Jones as either of those two? And yeah, if you think about what would one of your very formative stories be if it was a different actor than the one that it was?
Oh my God. I love this thought experiment, and I almost want like, if you know, like thinking about multiverse, different steps. Just if the other actors from a bunch of the classic 80s films had been cast, what is that future like? Collectively, somebody creatively going into that puzzle. Because I would love to know what our world would be like if Christopher Walken had been Indiana Jones. Just assuming
Will Smith was supposed to be Neo. He turned it down.
Yeah.
Sean Connery was supposed to be Gandalf. That would have taken me out of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ian McKellen is so perfect in that role. I cannot imagine anybody else there. I mean, I can imagine it. I can't imagine being happy with it.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a try and see if people like respond to me in Twitter world.
I mean, I guess it could be anybody. You can substitute it with whoever you want. I'm just actually thinking of people who I know were slotted to get roles, and some of those are funny because you think about it, almost happened that way.
Yeah. I think that's even better because you're taking it from the pool of talent that was on the table, and if anything and sneezed differently in Brazil, and a butterfly did this other thing, and then I
heard somebody cast the Avengers in the 90s, and it was like Tom Cruise as Tony Stark, and I can't remember who the other ones were, but it's a similar exercise where you're saying, at that time, who else was around who could have been cast in that role, and how would it have impacted you differently if it had been someone else?
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland is either Banner or Ant-Man. I've just decided. I don't know.
Kiefer Sutherland is normally blonde, isn't he?
Yeah. When he was younger, he could have been Loki too, actually.
That one would be interesting. Oh, I like that one because it's not like you're just looking for who could do a good Tom Hiddleston. If Kiefer Sutherland played Loki, it would be a different Loki, and he'd be a little scary or a little more threatening. But I'd love it.
He just in Lost Boys, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. For him to have kind of a redemption arc with that character, that'd be a good one.
Wow, dude, I love these games. Okay, well, I'm gonna think on that and send it out in the world.
Okay.
It's kind of breaking my brain just as much as time travel would.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't know how much movie watching I'm going to be getting to in the coming weeks. I don't know if I'll be around for a show. But next time, if I can, maybe I'll bring the baby on the show.
Oh my gosh.
That'll get us views.
Baby show.
Yeah.
They wiggle and make sounds, kind of like cats, right?
That's pretty much all they do. They're just kind of a flesh loaf.
Awesome. Well, then baby deeply while the rest of us TV deeply.
Sounds good.
And yeah. Oh, great.
All right.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.